inspiring stories and lively debates.
You're comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister.
Which is it?
Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday,
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together and what have we got, in my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Tune in to Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan. GB News royalty with your perfect start to the weekend. Lucky us! Feisty and fearless guests.
Well, I'm a normal person, so ask me.
Honest opinions that raises more questions than a Gary Barlow tax return. And a few surprises along the way. Might be cold in this studio. That is Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan. 8 to 9 only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's 9 p.m. I'm Patrick Christys. Tonight,
Prime Minister will be aware that he's required to declare any benefits that relate to his political activities, including loans or credit arrangements, within 28 days. 28 days, Prime Minister, yes. And that under the law, any donation of over £500 to a political party must be registered and declared.
Well, as Keir Starmer is involved in yet another political scandal, is the Prime Minister the king of hypocrisy? Plus, no wonder he's legged it to Italy, but he's no closer to smashing the gangs, is he? And we have got an exclusive for you that reveals how people smugglers are now running a ferry service for illegal immigrants. Great stuff. Also tonight...
What do you say to your victims, Hugh Edwards?
Hugh Edwards avoids jail. Should he be behind bars? And...
those not in receipt of pension credit or certain other means-tested benefits will no longer receive the winter fuel payment from this year onwards.
Today is a day of shame. The winter fuel payments have been scrapped. Millions of pensioners will be plunged into poverty. I'm going to do something about this. On my panel tonight is the Telegraph's Madeline Grant, journalist Benjamin Butterworth and the ex-chairman of the Tory party, Sir Jake Berry. Oh, and can you tell me, please, what happens next here? Get ready, Britain. Here we go. It's time to save our seniors. Next.
Good evening from the GB newsroom. It's just gone 9 o'clock. These are your headlines. Junior doctors have voted to accept a government pay deal worth a rise of 22.3% on average over 2 years. The British Medical Association thanked junior doctors in England for voting, with 66% of junior doctors in favour of the deal. Health Secretary Wes Streeting said he is pleased they've accepted the government's offer.
It was an essential first step for us to cut waiting lists and reform the NHS, that we ended the strikes that were plaguing patients in terms of delayed operations, appointments and procedures, and also causing misery for junior doctors who should feel optimistic and confident about the future of the health service they're working in. So to have achieved this deal, a fair deal for patients, a fair deal for taxpayers and a fair deal for junior doctors so quickly will be a huge source of relief for everyone across the country.
Now, in other news, disgraced BBC presenter Hugh Edwards has been spared jail after admitting to accessing indecent images of children, but the judge said his long-earned reputation is in tatters. It comes after the 63-year-old was sent 41 illegal images by convicted paedophile Alex Williams over WhatsApp. The court also heard Edwards paid Williams hundreds of pounds after receiving the images. At Westminster Magistrates Court this afternoon, Edwards was handed 6 months imprisonment, suspended for 2 years. It means he doesn't go to prison, but is subject to a probation period. The former newsreader also has to undertake 25 rehabilitation sessions and be placed on the sex offender treatment programme for 40 days. In a statement, his former employer, the BBC, said Edwards had betrayed not just the BBC, but audiences who had put their trust in him, adding that the corporation was appalled by his crimes. Meanwhile, the Prime Minister has reaffirmed his commitment to cracking down on smuggling gangs after high-level talks in Rome. Sir Keir Starmer met with Italian leader Giorgia Meloni to discuss what he called Italy's remarkable progress in halting Mediterranean boat crossings. It comes after Italy's recent controversial deal with Albania to handle asylum claims. In a joint press conference, both leaders underscored their commitment to supporting Ukraine and pledged to work together to fight human trafficking. And the Prime Minister has said it is very important that the rules are followed amid the ongoing row about a donor paying for his wife's clothes. The Conservatives have called for an investigation into Sir Keir Starmer's failure to declare significant donations from Lord Wahid Ali. It's alleged he did not report thousands of pounds worth of designer gifts for his wife in violation of parliamentary rules. Those are the latest GB News headlines. Now it's back to Patrick.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Welcome along. I'm angry. I see a burning injustice in Britain. Our greatest generation, our senior citizens, are being treated like second-class citizens. Today, it became official that winter fuel payments will be cut, the energy price cap has gone up, so bills could be around 10% higher, council tax is set to go up again, and the single-person discount may disappear, which would disproportionately affect the elderly. In fact, it's even been nicknamed the widow tax. And now they might even lose their bus passes. Now, it breaks my heart to know that this winter, millions of elderly people will be putting on a hat, a coat and gloves in their own front room. It breaks my heart that so many of them will have to choose between heating their home and eating a meal that day. Now, they have paid into the system their whole lives, but now they are at the back of the queue in Britain. And I think that's wrong. So I thought maybe I could do something to help them out. And that's why today I have launched a fundraiser for Friends of the Elderly. I've set an initial target, all right, of £100,000. Now, I know that sounds like a heck of a lot of money. It is a heck of a lot of money, but I know 100% that we can do that, OK? Now, I've got loads of stuff planned, and this fundraiser is certainly going to be keeping me and my team very busy in the coming weeks. But let me just tell you a little bit about Friends of the Elderly, and that's there, the donation page, all right? So that's justgiving.com/page/save our seniors, OK? That's what the page address is. Anyway, so Friends of the Elderly, they give grants to pensioners living in poverty. Now, this year is set to be their busiest year. We will have more pensioners plunged into poverty than ever before. They've had elderly people calling them in tears. They literally don't know where their next meal is coming from. So if you donate to justgiving.com/page/save our seniors, then that money will help save a senior citizen's life this winter. Now, unlike today's younger generation, who always have their hand out, many seniors are too proud to ask for help. And that means many of them suffer in silence. Well, not on our watch. Now, I know you feel that there is a grave injustice here. Our pensioners are getting clobbered, so we can just give money away to everybody else. I know you care about that. Like I said, I've got a lot planned for this fundraiser, but you can get the ball rolling now by going to justgiving.com/page/save our seniors. Thanks to you, we've done some amazing fundraisers at GB News. We raised £130,000 for the mental health charity Mind. We raised nearly £500,000 for the Royal British Legion. Well, let's see what we can do for our elderly, OK? I think what's happening to pensioners in Britain is an absolute scandal. Let's show the elderly that we care. So that's justgiving.com/page/save our seniors. Right, let's get the thoughts of my panel this evening. We're joined by sketch writer and columnist at The Telegraph. We've got Madeline Grant. I'm also joined by journalist and broadcaster Benjamin Butterworth and the former chairman of the Tory party, Sir Jake Berry. Jake, I'll start with you on this. It just seems really out of whack that in Britain we've got people who pay into the system their entire lives and that they end up getting clobbered, and we seem able to just dish money out to everyone else, don't we?
I think the fact that you are starting that Just Giving page is a national disgrace. I think it's absolutely appalling that the fourth or fifth richest economy in the world, a major national television broadcaster, has to start a fund to stop pensioners freezing to death over the winter. What on earth is the Labour Party doing taking this money away from pensioners? When I was growing up, we used to have fundraisers on television, comic relief, raising money for starving children around the world, wherever it was. We now, in Starmer's Britain, have to have a fundraiser on a national television channel because pensioners are going to die. This is not what people voted for in July. I applaud you for doing this. I think it's fantastic. I look forward to supporting it. But the fact you have to do it is an absolute disgrace.
I mean, Maddie, the idea really that we have, it's not just the winter fuel payments, because we've got the energy price cap going up as well, which will have an impact. Council tax only ever seems to go up, so that will happen, won't it, as well? There's even chatter about them having the bus pass taken away.
Free prescriptions on the block.
I spoke to friends of the elderly. I mean, they told me some absolutely horrendous stories about people who are like £1 or £2 above the price cap, so now they are just going to be absolutely clobbered. It just doesn't seem fair to me in Britain, I think.
Yeah.
How do you feel about it?
Well, I think the way in which they've gone about this is unbelievably callous, in the sense that if they wanted to means test some pensioner welfare, they could have done it in a different way. They could, for example, have said that any pensioner who's paying the additional rate or the higher rate, fine, no winter fuel payments for those people. But restricting it exclusively to pensions credit, and also in not giving people any notice about this. I mean, this is a big sum of money if you're already struggling. And to be given no notice, something that was not in the manifesto. And of course, we also know that many pensioners are not particularly tech savvy, and many people, and the process of going about applying for pensions credit is notoriously complex. It involves endless form filling. It's a very complicated system. So there may well be people who are even eligible for that, but will not now be looking for it.
Yeah.
And I just think that both the seriousness of this and the manner in which they've gone about it leave much to be desired. And I'm someone who broadly does support means testing certain pensioner benefits.
Absolutely. Benjamin, it's to me, it's the massive sense of injustice that we've got here, right? So we are able to lob about £11 billion out around the world to help other countries deal with climate change. We are able to give an infinite pot of resources to people who just arrived across the channel. And yet we've got people who are conceivably in their 80s or 90s, our greatest generation, who will now essentially be freezing in their own front rooms. I just think it's just such a hypocrisy.
Well, you have people at the bottom of the pile who are pensioners that clearly need help and probably have needed more help for a long time. Now, you also have 27% of pensioners that are in £1 million houses, and that's a figure often quoted in the Daily Express, which is hardly an anti-pensioner newspaper. And I think that, some of this has been distorted because the state pension went up by £900 in April. Next April, it goes up by £460. So this winter, the average pensioner will receive more money from the state, even with this £300 knocked off, than they did last winter.
Well,
so
that's correct.
And it's even more than inflation.
Like council tax
it's even more than inflation.
That.
And so I think there is an awful lot of scaremongering going on to regular pensioners who are going to get more money even after inflation.
It's not, the first thing, it's not more than inflation.
It is.
The triple lock tracks inflation. It is only more than inflation if inflation itself is less than 2.5%. And we've been through a period where inflation has been 8, 9, 10%. It's just absolutely incorrect, Benjamin, to say it's more than inflation.
It's not.
It is absolutely designed to track inflation on a certain date. The fact that it may be more than inflation today doesn't mean that pensioners haven't suffered inflation for the last year. It's just completely untrue to say that.
The rise in wages.
It's all very well and good saying that there's scaremongering going on here, but, you know, over the course of the next few weeks, I'm going to be laying bare the actual reality of what pensioners are going through at the moment and the fear that they've got. And it is just absolutely heartbreaking where they're at. And, yeah, just I suppose it's a question of, you know, we've had perceived two-tier policing, two-tier justice. I mean, this almost seems like a two-tier society.
Two-tier care. On the day we found out that a man who earns £166,000 a year, his wife, we don't know her salary, but it's reported to be over 600,000. They get over 60,000. I beg your pardon.
Gosh,
yeah, I know exactly. Where do I sign? Combined income of 200 grand, a free house, number 10 Downing Street in central London. We hear from Keir Starmer today that not only can he not afford to buy his suits and his wife can't afford to buy her own dresses, he can't afford to buy his own tickets to go and see his beloved Arsenal. I don't know why you go and see Arsenal instead of Liverpool anyway. But, you know, that is double standards and hypocrisy writ large across this Labour body. A Prime Minister who wants all the freebies for himself, you know, give me the money, give me the clothes, even give me the glasses. You could get some free glasses. Won't give a pensioner £200.
I absolutely knew you would have done.
Won't give pensioner £200. It's a disgrace. And why can this man, who is our Prime Minister, not read the room? He is absolutely wrong. And he and his wife are like a pair of grifters squatting in number 10.
All MPs get tickets to events. So can I just check, if I go and look at your register of members' interests from your time as an MP, you've never accepted a gift to an event?
I don't think I have, actually. I mean, I might be wrong, maybe 15 years ago.
Unlikely. I mean,
but I don't think I have.
If you're attacking Keir Starmer for something that you and every other MP does...
It's not like... I'm not literally freezing pensioners to death this winter.
You guys raise taxes...
Politics is about choices. And how can we have a Prime Minister who says, I can't afford to buy my own tickets to the football because I might need to go in a box?
Sorry, I'm just getting something in my ear now, which is... which I do believe is this happens all the... What? We've raised £7.5 grand.
That's brilliant.
It's all right. 7.5... 347 people have already donated to justgiving.com/page/save our seniors. We're going to give the money, all of it, to Friends of the Elderly. They do grants for people. They help take them to doctor's appointments, dentist appointments, all of that stuff. And apparently, I'm just being told in my ear now that we launched that 15 minutes ago and you've managed to raise £7.5 grand in that amount of time.
Benjamin, keep talking.
I think this is amazing. Yeah, brilliant. Well done, everybody. Right, look, just to emphasise why I'm rattling the can for this, right? Because it really does seriously, genuinely break my heart when I think about this injustice that's going on in Britain at the moment. It doesn't seem fair. It doesn't seem right to me. And I also know that a lot of elderly people are often too proud to ask for help. And there was one testimony, I spoke to someone from Friends of the Elderly, and they said to me that this lady, bless her, called up. And obviously she's called up because she must need some help. And she was on the phone for 20 minutes before she admitted, I need a bit of help, actually. You know, this is the generation that deserve this kind of stuff. So well done and thank you, everybody, really, for donating to that. But, Madeline, I'll just bring us back into the room here. Just picking up on what Jake was saying. So you've got this idea, Starmer... He is a millionaire. I'm not begrudging him that. Well, you know, well done. You know, I think when his mum was getting on a bit, he bought her a 7-acre plot in Surrey, I believe, which is quite nice. I think they had a donkey sanctuary.
They did, yes.
So that's all lovely, right? And then now you've got this guy saying, no, we're going to take away the winter fuel payments. The optics of it aren't great, are they?
I actually can't believe how quickly it's taken them to fall into these obvious bear traps. That, you know, firstly, if you're going to make a kind of decision like this, at least give people tons of notice so you can have a proper public service campaign explaining to people about the necessity of signing up for pensions credit, for example. But they didn't do that. They just rushed it through. In fact, it looks very much like essentially the Treasury who asked probably every incoming Prime Minister tell them that this would be a good idea. But on the whole, Prime Ministers sensibly say, no, that's a very bad idea. But on this occasion, Rachel Reeves said yes. But also just the optics of the, you know, having made such a song and dance about probity and honesty and been, unbelievably pious for several years under Rishi Sunak and previously Boris Johnson, to have failed to declare these gifts. I mean, it's actually, I mean, who is in charge of this? You would have thought this was very basic politics 101 that they've somehow managed to screw up.
Yeah, I know, I agree. And also, as well, I just think the idea of getting your wife a personal shopper...
it's the idea of a lord buying a millionaire's wife clothes is a bit creepy and weird, isn't it? I mean, let's be honest. How many free pairs of glasses have you had, Benjamin?
I've had 2 or 3 free pairs of glasses, but they weren't...
It's a bit like Indecent Proposal. He had a pasta number 10 as well for a few days. Maybe it's like Indecent Proposal, allegedly.
I've known Lord Ali for some time, and he's donated to the Labour Party for a very long time. It's not creepy, because he's a gay man.
Really
he was married to a man for many years. In fact, he was the first gay person appointed to the House of Lords in the 90s. And, I think it's wrong that they didn't declare it. But the truth is that the expectations of how politicians are meant to look, those things cost a fortune, and we don't put them on salaries.
But they have a household salary of 200 grand and they live rent-free. What, you're saying he can't afford to go to Specsavers and get a pair of glasses?
Exactly.
What planet does this man live on?
Also, I'm sorry, but most people in Britain couldn't pick his wife out of a lineup. Right, so the idea that she has to be walking around dripping from head to toe...
she's a gorgeous woman. She would look good in a bin bag. I'm not saying she should go out in a bin bag, but I don't think it necessarily needs to be the highest of the high end. She'd look damn good in anything. But the fact is, I think this wouldn't have hit quite so hard if Keir Starmer hadn't consistently assumed the moral high ground to the point of being, at times insufferably about...
He did used to be a prosecutor. Did you know that about him?
Wait, wasn't
he knows the law. He knows the law.
Yeah.
And I forget
if only his dad were a dressmaker.
OK, sorry, I'm being shouted at because we've rumbled on far too long. But right, look, thank you very much, everybody. JustGiving.com/page/save our seniors is that fundraiser. I have got a heck of a lot planned in the coming weeks. OK, so we're going to be doing a few bits and bobs, which obviously I will let you know about. I'll be doing them. I think we've raised 14 grand now. Unbelievable. We're on air for 20 minutes and you wonderful people have raised £14,000. That shows how much you care. It's all for Friends of the Elderly. I'll tell you a bit more about it in the coming days, etc. Coming up, though... the Prime Minister got booed and sworn at by crowds at Doncaster Racecourse. Just how has Labour become so unpopular in just 10 weeks? And yet... how are the Tories still even less popular? Yes, I was right. Legendary former editor at The Sun, Kelvin Mackenzie, helps me get to the bottom of that riddle. Also, disgraced former BBC presenter Hugh Edwards dodges jail after sentencing for indecent images of children. But should he repay the monster taxpayer-funded salary he was enjoying whilst the BBC apparently knew about the charges against him? I'm going to be asking one of his former colleagues. But up next is the head-to-head. Firebrand Tory MP Andrew Rosindale clashes with commentator Andy Williams on the scandals that keep coming to Labour. You're hearing a little bit about it there. Is it time that the Prime Minister got a good dressing down? It's Patrick Christys tonight. See you in a sec.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
With her novels Persuasion and Northanger Abbey both set in Bath, the city has taken to honouring their author each year with the Jane Austen Festival. Over 3,500 Austen fans flock to the city, many in their Regency finery and many coming from abroad. You can join the throng and follow the author along streets whose buildings look much the same as when she strolled past them over 200 years ago. Dating back to 2001, the festival is the world's largest and longest-running celebration of the Romance writer. Originally created by the Jane Austen Centre in Bath and running over the course of one weekend, 23 years on, it's grown into a 10-day festival with more than 80 events. And to tell us more, I'm delighted to be joined now by author and broadcaster Jenny Trent-Hughes. Jenny, let's have a look at you. You look absolutely splendid. Well, welcome to GB News. Tell me a little bit about what you're wearing.
I'm wearing, well, usually I have a character called the Queen of All Hearts, and I have a fantastic outfit designed by Bath Theatrical. I was on the way up to you this morning. I was so excited I was going to meet you finally, and because of the trains, I didn't get to come. So I had to run back to my boat. I live on a boat, which is why the background is a bit odd, and I'm in a Regency outfit.
Well, look, I'm absolutely delighted that you have put the outfit on for us, because also someone was bringing a dress to you and her train was cancelled as well. So dressing up is obviously a big part of it. Have you any idea how many people dress up in order to participate?
Quite a few thousand.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates. You're comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister.
Which is it? Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
The Britain I grew up in was the most peaceful, gentle society that has ever existed. That has been destroyed.
Opinion polls show immigration is the #1 concern to the British public. Are you proud to be British?
Yeah, I'm ever so proud.
My name is Stephen Edgington, and in this documentary, I want to find out how Britain became a nation of immigrants. Immigration, the Truth. Available from the 19th of September at gbnews.com.
Mark Dolan tonight is your weekend dose of news, debate and entertainment. This sounds like a wild conspiracy theory. Don't miss My Big Opinion. Mark meets at My Take at 10. Democracy is a funny old thing. And we don't do boring, not on my watch. I just won't have it. Let's go and get another glass of that bubbly. You've earned it. That's Mark Dolan tonight, Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 11, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
OK, welcome back to Patrick Christys tonight. We are only on GB News. Now, just before we get stuck into tonight's head-to-head, I just want to say a massive, massive, massive thank you. In the last 24 minutes, you have raised £22,000, £23,000 for Friends of the Elderly. OK, we are trying to just raise a bit of money to help people out. Friends of the Elderly give pensioners who are sadly now below the poverty line grants, urgent grants. They do things like help them go to doctor's appointments. They are seeing a massive influx this year because people who just missed out on that winter fuel payment. So they're seeing a huge influx now. It is no exaggeration at all, so the money that you give will save lives. I've got a lot planned for this in the coming weeks, so I thought I'd launch this fundraiser tonight. That's the fundraiser. You can see it on your screen now. It's justgiving.com/page/save our seniors. We've hit, in the last 25 minutes, you wonderful people have hit 23% of that target. It's amazing. We're already up to £23,000. Thank you, thank you, thank you. A million times thank you. But I think we can save some lives and show the elderly, our greatest generation, that we do actually really care about them. But, yes, without further dither and delay, let's get back to the show we had planned. And it's time now for our head-to-head. All right, so why on earth is multimillionaire Sir Keir Starmer letting a billionaire Labour donor buy his wife a new wardrobe and throw in a personal shopper whilst he's at it? Why? Well, don't worry, because according to our esteemed Foreign Secretary, David Lammy, there is nothing to see here. It's just a Labour supporter making sure the Prime Minister looks presentable.
In our country, there isn't a budget for the Prime Minister's clothes or his wife's clothes. I've just come back from America, where there is a substantial budget to ensure that the US President and the First Lady, their appearance can never be challenged. That is not the case in our country.
Oh, my gosh, honestly, come on. Just to take a second to imagine now how Labour and their supporters would react if Boris Johnson didn't declare a donation that paid for Carrie's clothes, or maybe this is nothing to see here. Politicians' freebies, you know, they get them quite regularly, don't they? We all know that. The Prime Minister is insistent that he's done nothing wrong. He hasn't ruled out taking donations from Lord Ali in the future. I'm not surprised. So, is this a storm in a teacup, or is Labour now becoming the party of sleaze? Let me know your thoughts. gbnews.com/yoursay. At GBNews is our Twitter handle, so you can engage with us there. But to battle this out in the studio, our Tory MP, Andrew Rosindale, and political commentator Andy Williams. Both of you, thank you very much. It makes a world of difference having you both in the studio, so thank you. Andrew, I'll start with you. Yeah, I mean, is this corruption and sleaze, do you think?
I want our Prime Minister, whoever it is, to look good. But
if you're a multimillionaire, you can pay for your own clothes. When we have a government that is doing so much harm, particularly to the elderly people, cutting the winter fuel allowance and all the other things that are coming down the line which are going to affect them, the look of a Labour Prime Minister, actually getting cash to pay for his spectacles and his suits, and then we find out his wife has been doing the same, I think it's utterly shameful. And I think a lot of people who voted Labour on the 4th of July are going to be regretting doing so today.
Interesting. All right, then, Andy, I'll ask you the same question. You know, is this a bit sleazy?
No, I don't think it's sleazy. I don't think it's a good look. And as a Labour supporter and someone who thinks Labour can and actually will make some progress on cleaning up politics, and I mean that seriously, I think it's really unfortunate to see Starmer making some of these rookie errors. I would put it down to naivety and inexperience and a steep learning curve rather than anything sinister. Now, by the way, I think whoever's running comms in number 10 needs to get a handle on it, because allowing Victoria Starmer to go to London Fashion Week this morning is ludicrous. I say, as a professional comms person, what were they thinking? But having said all of that, the idea that Labour is the party of sleaze or corruption, when you look at what happened with the successive Conservative governments over many years, which I think reached its absolute apex under Boris Johnson, a man who did more to debase the office of Prime Minister than anyone pretty much in the history of that office, I think is a bit of a cheek. And that's not even to mention the SNP.
OK. Andrew, I mean, you know, this is the kind of thing that unfortunately for Keir Starmer, there's always a receipt. And the receipts are him standing at the dispatch box in Parliament, hammering Boris Johnson, not declaring things, really, really, really going at him. And now he's done it. Is he a hypocrite?
I'm afraid so, yes. I don't like saying that about our Prime Minister, but it is utterly hypocritical that all those years Labour would throw as much mud at the Conservatives as they could. And, OK, a lot of mistakes were made under the last government, but this was meant to be a government of service. Who are they serving? They're serving their own.
Prada.
They're looking after their own interests. This is not a government of service. It's been a government of shambles so far, and now we see it's a government of self-service. But I think the British people are growing tired of this government very quickly.
I don't agree at all that it's government of shambles. I think Labour have been very clear about what they're planning to do. I think they've made some really bold calls early on. I actually think, and hopefully this will raise a few more £1,000 for your thing, Patrick, but I actually think it's the right decision to make on the winter fuel allowance. I really, really do, because as Age UK themselves say, 80% of people who receive the winter fuel allowance don't need it. So I think we should be taking that money away from those people, because they literally don't need it. They'll be fine. There are obviously people at the margins and at the poor end of the scale who do need that money. But putting that to one side, just to come back to, you know, you say if this was Boris Johnson who'd done this, well, it was. It literally was. And actually,
they called him to resign.
Rightly so. And there is
then what happens now?
There is a subtle difference here, but important difference, which is that Keir Starmer, he declared this late. And that is a mistake, and he should rightly receive opprobrium for that.
He paid for Boris Johnson
didn't. Boris Johnson didn't.
Boris's suits and spectacles.
But the point, Andrew, it doesn't matter whether it's clothes or wallpaper or anything.
I'm sorry, wallpaper is static. It's in Downing Street in a government building.
Come on.
You can't take the wallpaper with him.
Doesn't make
the suits and the spectacles you can. Totally
doesn't make a difference.
No comparison.
No, of course. I think the
I'm just going to bring it up, because we're going to carry on with this, but I just wanted to show us, remind ourselves of something that Keir Starmer was saying in Parliament when he was in those heady days as leader of the opposition. So this is him to Boris Johnson, I think.
The Prime Minister will be aware that he's required to declare any benefits that relate to his political activities, including loans or credit arrangements, within 28 days. 28 days, Prime Minister, yes. He will also know that any donation must be recorded in the register of ministers' interests, and that under the law, any donation of over £500 to a political party must be registered and declared.
All right, so look, Keir Starmer, North London. All right, you know, it's quite nice, quite leafy, isn't it? You know, has been surrounded, you know, with quite well-paid jobs. His life, he doesn't seem necessarily able to define properly what working class is. You know, hammering people, certainly the elderly in Britain at the moment, with a basket of measures that is going to really harm them this winter. And then at the same time, you know, he's got a personal shopper doing his wife's clothes shopping. Do you think he's massively out of touch with people?
Oh, my goodness. He is, completely. These people are supposed to be caring, sharing socialists. They're meant to be looking after the working class. They're meant to be the party of the people. But they're not. You come to Romford, you speak to you come to my constituency, the average man and woman in the street, they are incandescent with what this government is doing. They didn't vote for this government, they voted...
Well, no one voted for this because it wasn't in the manifesto.
Absolutely, and they are hypocritical. They spent 14 years hammering a Conservative government, which, by the way, left the country... The economics of the country was in a far stronger state.
Oh, really?
After the pandemic, yes.
No, it wasn't.
Absolutely. Fastest growing economy in the G7.
Living standards down, real wages down.
To all Western
I'll just ask you a similar question on this. I do wonder whether or not Keir Starmer is actually massively out of touch with the common man and woman. Does he live in the same world that we live?
It does annoy me, Patrick, when we go down this London route. I mean, the idea that everybody in Romford is really normal and straight down the line. Everyone in Holborn...
Essex, not London. You should know that.
I do know that. Thank you. My partner's from Essex. Everybody in Holborn and St Pancras is somehow like an elitist multimillionaire lawyer. Is a load of nonsense.
No, but he is, though, isn't he?
Well, I don't think he's an elitist, and I really don't. Keir Starmer's from a lower working class background, low middle class background. Let's say, okay, let's not split hairs. He is, and he worked his way up, and he worked bloody hard, and he got a knighthood on merit, and he became director of public prosecutions on merit. So, can we just say fair play to him on that?
Absolutely.
And to say that, I just don't think it's fair to say, oh, he represents this sort of central North London constituency, so he's out of touch. But because Andrew represents Romford, he's really in touch. It doesn't make sense.
Okay,
it doesn't make sense at all.
Can I say something else about Keir? I mean, all credit to him. He won this humongous Labour majority. But he also is the Prime Minister with the lowest national share of the vote of any Prime Minister ever.
But that's not how a system works. It's
the
like
British
saying...
people, he doesn't have a mandate in that.
He absolutely has a huge mandate.
On 34% of the vote.
That's like saying, well, you only won 1-0, but you had 28 corners.
34% of the vote.
Well, OK, all right, well, look, it remains to see how this plays out, but, you know, it's going to be one to watch, isn't it? He says that he'll quite happily take more donations from Lord Ali going forward. I do find it odd, though, I must say, the idea that I don't know what Emily would make of it if I said, oh, Lord Ali wants to go and buy you a new wardrobe. Anyway, right, OK, so we are, I think, just going to dip our toe back in the old donations water, are we, as well, because I'm trying to do a bit of fundraising for Friends of the Elderly. You can go to justgiving.com/page/save our seniors. I've set a £100,000 target to try and make... To make people's lives a bit easier this winter. Pensioners who are now sadly below the poverty line, help them with heating, with eating, with all that stuff. And so far, apparently, we've raised 32 grand. So well done and thank you. I've got a lot planned for this campaign. We're going to be hearing a heck of a lot about it in the coming days. Anyway, right, OK, in other news, the Prime Minister gets booed by crowds at Doncaster Racecourse. Just how has Labour become so unpopular in 10 weeks? But next, disgraced former BBC presenter Hugh Edwards. Will he dodge jail? To sentencing today for indecent images of children. But should he repay that taxpayer-funded salary? OK, stay tuned.
Hi there, welcome to the latest forecast from the Met Office for GB News. It was missing throughout much of the summer, but higher pressure has now arrived. There will be some cloud in places, but for most it's clear spells through the night and during the next few days. Under this higher pressure that's centred over the UK, that's pushed a cold front south. But another weak front will move into the far northwest overnight. That's going to bring some thicker and lower clouds, so fairly murky and damp in places. Lewis Harris sky, as well as Shetland, seeing some light and patchy outbreaks of rain. Elsewhere, clear skies. Under those clear skies, temperatures falling 2 to 4 Celsius in some sheltered spots across central and southern UK. A few mist and fog patches first thing. They're not going to last soon enough. Clear skies and sunshine return across the UK. That is, except for the Northern Isles and the far north and northwest of Scotland, where it will be a grey, misty and damp start in places. Best of the sunshine across Scotland, we'd be through the central belt at eastern Scotland, and Northern Ireland seeing some decent sunny spells. But for much of southern Scotland, England and Wales, it's blue skies from the word go, and that's how it remains effectively throughout much of the day. Some patchy cloud, most likely across East Anglia and the southeast. Kent seeing a fair amount of cloud moving in. But for the north and northwest of Scotland, the cloud actually thins and it turns brighter into the afternoon and warmer as a result. Northeast Scotland, low to mid-20s, further south in places as well. And it's another fine start to Wednesday. The best of the sunshine on Wednesday morning will be in the far north and west, whilst central and eastern England sees quite a lot of cloud during the morning. That disappears back to the coast during the afternoon, leading to another warm and fine day for many. Thursday's very similar, but on Friday, some showers will return. Bye-bye.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates. Are you comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister?
Which is it? Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Patrick Christys tonight on GB News. Now, disgraced former BBC News anchor Hugh Edwards was sentenced in court today after he pleaded guilty to 3 charges of making indecent images of children. Edwards was greeted by shouts from the press and from protesters holding placards of fellow notorious BBC employee Jimmy Savile. He was handed a 6-month suspended sentence lasting for 2 years, being spared jail for his crimes. He also had a basket of other measures as well, like he's got to, go and attend some courses or something. Anyway, before officially leaving in April, he's estimated to have been paid between £475,000 and £480,000 in the previous 12 months, including during a period of suspension where the BBC were reportedly aware of the severity of the charges against Edwards. BBC salaries are paid for by the taxpayer, it's public money, it's your money, and last week BBC boss Tim Davie told the House of Lords Committee that he'd requested that Edwards returned £200,000 of the money, but apparently he's yet to hear back, so there we go. Our Home and Security Editor, Mark White, did ask Hugh Edwards about quite a difficult question earlier today. Unsurprisingly, he didn't have much to say back.
What do you say to your victims, Hugh Edwards? Will you give back the £200,000 to the BBC?
All right, well, I'm joined now by the former head of religion and ethics at the BBC. It's Akhil Ahmed. Akhil, thank you very much. Sorry to be talking to you about something as kind of vile as this, really, but, that's the way it goes, I'm afraid. Should Hugh Edwards be made to pay that money back, do we think?
I mean, on a personal level, yeah, I do. That's what I personally think. Obviously, I'm speaking now in a purely personal capacity. I think the BBC have got to go through a legal process to try and get the money out of it. You've got to ask him first, and the likelihood is he's not going to give it back, is he? And then they've got to go through a legal process. Personally, I think he should give the money back. I don't think he's behaved properly. I mean, the BBC didn't know everything at the beginning. Things have moved on. The story is, there's a number of different things going on with that particular story. You can't not pay somebody when they're suspended, etc., during the investigation. There's all sorts of legal issues. They're right to ask for that money back, and I'm sure they are taking a lot of legal advice. You can't scratch your back in the BBC about needing legal advice at times. There'll be lots of legal advice going on, and they've got to ask for that money back on a personal level.
I think it is, yeah. I mean, it has lent weight. So what we were just seeing on the screens then was people who turned up at court with signs with Jimmy Savile on, and probably a couple of other people as well there, and all of that stuff. And it's added weight to the argument, now whether this is true or not, but it's added weight to the argument, hasn't it, that the BBC has maybe at times protected those people. Do you think that anything like that happened here with Hugh Edwards?
No, I don't think with Hugh Edwards that was the case, and I think that what you got to remember, there's a huge distance in terms of time between Jimmy Savile and things like this, and there's a big difference in between it in his behaviour as well. I mean, Jimmy Savile was just ridiculous and outrageous, and all those other characters like it. No, what there is there's an issue here about it. It's not just the BBC; it's across the whole. We saw it with, the kind of Philip Schofield, and we've seen it with other alleged kind of stories around things like Russell Brand, etc. There's a whole thing here about people who have authority and have power. And that kind of imbalance that they can have about, well, one, people may let them get away with stuff because they think they're talent, or two, people are scared to say anything because they think that their career.
Can I ask, what was he like? I mean, did you work much with him? This presumably was a shock.
I got to be honest with you, it was a shock. I mean, I'm not going to lie and say I was his best friend, but we did work together. He presented things like Songs of Praise, but on a personal level, we worked very closely together when I had to run the religious kind of coverage of the Pope's visit. If you remember when the Pope came over to Scotland and England a few years ago, Hugh was my face, if that makes any sense. He was the face of those live broadcasts, and I worked very closely with him. We talked about really trivial things like cycling, if I'm honest with you, and suits and all that kind of rubbish, or talking about work. And I saw him in action, and he was a brilliant presenter, and that's what makes it even harder for people.
Well, it's bad news. It's bad news for the BBC archives, doesn't it? Because there's some really major things.
I think it's going to be tough, isn't it, to cut him out of certain things.
Well, you can't. I mean, he did it all, didn't he? All right, look, thank you very much. Great to have you on the show. I do hope to chat to you again very, very soon. That is the former head of religion and ethics at the BBC, Akhil Ahmed. Look, I know the other big question, of course, is should he have gone to prison for this? But then you look at the person who sent in the pictures; they didn't go to prison. So I think it was always, unfortunately, the case that Hugh Edwards was not really ever going to do any time behind bars. But a BBC spokesperson said, "We are appalled by his crimes. He's betrayed not just the BBC, but audiences who put their trust in him." Right, coming up, I'm going to bring you a GB News exclusive at 10. It's an update on the Channel migrant crisis. How on earth do we put a stop to it? Starmer's been off living it large in Italy today. I'm not sure he's actually managed to achieve anything there. But next... So, the Prime Minister was booed and sworn at by crowds at Doncaster Racecourse. Just how has Labour become so unpopular in just 10 weeks? Former editor of The Sun, Kelvin Mackenzie, he's live and he's next.
Tune in to Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan. GB News royalty with your perfect start to the weekend. Lucky us. Feisty and fearless guests.
Well, I'm a normal person, so ask me.
Honest opinions that raises more questions than a Gary Barlow tax return. And a few surprises along the way. Might be cold in this studio. That is Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan. 8 to 9, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Nana Queer, weekends from 3 p.m.
I'm now joined by a truly inspirational man. He's an endurance runner, Ben Smith. 401 marathons in just 401 days for mental health and well-being. He was spurned on after being bullied as a child, was able to raise a whopping £250,000. I'm pleased to say that he joins me now. Right, so this was a while ago, wasn't it?
Yes.
How long ago was it?
Well, we're coming up to, I think next year, roughly about 10 years since we started it. In 2026 will be 10 years since we finished.
So when did you run the marathons?
So it was between 2015 and 2016, over the course of 401 days, all around the UK.
What kind of madness was that?
Oh, it was an adventure, let me tell you.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, on day one when we started in Bristol, never ever thought that the project would ever become what it became. But over the course of the 401 days, we ran with 13,500 people within 8 miles of everywhere on the British mainland, from Land's End to John O'Groats. So...
And that was the journey from Land's End to John O'Groats?
Yeah. We covered so many different communities around the UK because I suppose the reason why I was doing it was to raise so much money for 2 anti-bullying charities that we wanted to include people in that. And yeah, I got to run in some amazing places.
I bet you did. What would you say is a beautiful place? I mean, the whole country, I love this country, but there are some outstanding, you know, beautiful areas around. What would you say?
Oh, definitely.
Where's the best place that you run?
Well, I think I've got a few, but I think I would say probably the Highlands of Scotland.
I knew you would say somewhere like
that. Yeah, just the kind of vastness of it, the dramaticness of it. I remember running up and down one of the paths in the Highlands near Glencoe and coming face to face with a wild stag. So it was quite, quite scary.
What did it do?
It did nothing. It did absolutely nothing. It was quite used to people because of the path.
What are you doing here? This is my house.
GB News, the People's Channel.
The Britain I grew up was the most peaceful, gentle society that has ever existed. That has been destroyed.
Opinion polls show immigration is the #1 concern to the British public. Are you proud to be British?
Yeah, I'm ever so proud.
My name is Stephen Edgington, and in this documentary, I want to find out how Britain became a nation of immigrants. Immigration, the Truth. Available from the 19th of September at gbnews.com.
OK, welcome back to Patrick Christys tonight. I have an update for you. As you will know, if you've been watching since the start of the show, I've decided that I wanted to fundraise for Friends of the Elderly. You can go to justgiving.com/page/save our seniors. And so far, already, it's got to £39,279. Absolutely unbelievable. Well done, everybody. Pensioners are absolutely getting it this winter because you've got the scrapping of the winter fuel payments. That came in today. You've got the energy price cap. That's gone up. Council tax, that'll go up. There's even talk of their bus pass being taken off them as well. You're going to have old people wrapping up in their living room, unable to put food on the table. It's a disgrace, and we've got money for everyone else, haven't we? So come on, let's try and raise a little bit of money for them. So thank you very much to everybody who's donated. It really does mean a lot. We've got a lot planned in the coming weeks. But anyway, it will come as no surprise, just moving us on to find out that it's 10 weeks since Keir Starmer came to power. He and his party have not got off to the best start when it comes to public affection. The PM, well, he was shouted at, actually, on at the races in Doncaster. This is what some people had to say to him. It's interesting, I didn't realise he was a banker. Oh no, sorry. I can't repeat what they were saying there. But anyway, with popularity ratings plummeting, now have Starmer and Labour become so unpopular so quickly? Calvin McKenzie joins us now. Calvin, sorry we're a bit squeezed tonight. I'm rattling the can for a charitable cause. But so Keir, right? He's getting booed and he called rude names at the races now. That didn't take long.
Well, he obviously isn't really connected with politics. The idea of going to Doncaster racecourse, Doncaster. A really challenged time probably for the town right now, and them to see a Prime Minister who has just insulted the elderly by taking some money away from them. And also it would have been 10 times worse had the story broken, as it did about 6 hours later, that in fact Lady Starmer was in fact wearing, potentially, could have been wearing a dress paid for by a Labour donor rather than her husband, which was a really weird aspect. He is already extremely unpopular. He is going to become more unpopular. We've got October the 30th coming up. I can't think of what shocking shape Labour are going to be in. And the truth about the matter is that they got in because the Conservatives were hated.
Yeah.
And everything that Labour have done has now reminded everybody why the Tories were in power for 14 years. And somebody like Starmer, a wealthy, he's estimated to be worth 10 million quid, can't even afford to buy his wife's dresses. Nor can he even afford, he has to rely on Lord Welly to buy himself a suit. When did we ever have a Prime Minister who ever said, look, mate, I'm a KC, I'm this, that and the other, I can't afford my own glasses? Who ever said that? Nobody ever said that. And that's why people don't like it. Everybody would like to be walking around saying, oh, it's fantastic, GB News. Oh, that's a rather nice suit, Patrick. Yes, GB News have bought it for me. It's ridiculous. You pay it out of your own money. And now they really wheel out Lammy to say, actually, I tell you what, why don't we... it's because we want our people to look great and they have to pay out their own money. The Prime Minister makes $166,000 a year, OK? 2, he gets other money sent to him. His missus, right, I admire her no end. She's a working wife, a working woman, and she's got a family. She makes $50,000 a year working for the NHS.
Great.
You know what? Why? That's 200 grand, more than 200 grand a year coming in, and they're saying we can't afford our own suit, and my missus can't afford that EM dress.
No, it's ridiculous. And again, you know, the optics of it, the timing of it, with everything else that's going on as well when it comes to either winter fuel payments or council tax or any of that stuff. Yeah, really, really bad. There was another video that we decided not to play because it's. Well, we didn't necessarily want to seem like we were glorifying it, really, if we're being honest, but of another Labour MP getting turfed out of a pub.
The Aldershot one.
Yeah, getting turfed out of a pub.
Well, do you know what? I don't like that very much, to be honest with you. Now, if you had Nigel Farage sitting here, he actually doesn't go into pubs now because of sometimes the abuse which he might receive or has received. Actually, the sense of violence associated with it, he feels very, very uneasy about it. I do not like the idea that there's a threatening aspect to our politicians. We have seen literally two die. 2 murdered in the last, 10, 12 years. I would like everybody to calm down on it. Look, if you're in public life, right, my advice to you is do not go into public houses, to be honest with you. And if I'm the Prime Minister, definitely don't go to Doncaster Racecourse.
Yeah.
So I feel that all it was a reflection that people don't like politicians generally. That is the truth.
Yeah. Do you think that Keir Starmer will actually go the full term? I mean, he's on something like a -25 approval rating at the moment. It's been a really catastrophic fall.
The truth about the matter is, all this stuff is self-induced. Wait until there is a problem. Right? Wait until there's a real problem where there isn't a right thing, and then we'll find out whether he will survive or not. But actually, that party owes a lot to the fact that he refused to say anything about his policy, about anything that he was associated with. Had he told them, by the way, in the general election run-up, by the way, my clothes and my wife's clothes are being paid for by a Labour donor, do you think he would have won by that? I don't think so. And had Rishi been so stupid as to leave it instead of July the 4th, made it January the 4th of the next year, the difference may have been entirely...
Indeed. Well, Kelvin, thank you very, very much. Great to have you on the show, as ever. I'm going to bring you tomorrow's newspaper front pages at 10:30 p.m. sharp. Full analysis as well of my press pack. But at 10, so next, I'll bring you a GB News exclusive. It's on the Channel migrant crisis. How on earth do we put a stop to it? Starmer was in Italy today. He was hoping to, come up with an idea. It's interesting, though, isn't it? Because I thought he had a plan, didn't he? But apparently not. So there we go. But yes, it's an exclusive. You will not believe the latest tactic that the human traffickers are using now. Stay tuned.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hi there, welcome to the latest forecast from the Met Office for GB News. It was missing throughout much of the summer, but higher pressure has now arrived. There will be some cloud in places, but for most it's clear spells through the night and during the next few days. Under this higher pressure that's centred over the UK, that's pushed a cold front south. But another weak front will move into the far northwest overnight. That's going to bring some thicker and lower clouds, so fairly murky and damp in places. Lewis Harris sky, as well as Shetland, seeing some light and patchy outbreaks. Rain elsewhere, clear skies. Under those clear skies, temperatures falling 2 to 4 Celsius in some sheltered spots across central and southern UK. A few mist and fog patches first thing. They're not going to last soon enough. Clear skies and sunshine return across the UK. That is, except for the Northern Isles and the far north and northwest of Scotland, where it will be a grey, misty and damp start in places. Best of the sunshine across Scotland, we'd be through the central belt at eastern Scotland, and Northern Ireland seeing some decent sunny spells. But for much of southern Scotland, England and Wales, it's blue skies from the word go, and that's how it remains effectively throughout much of the day. Some patchy cloud, most likely across East Anglia and the southeast. Kent seeing a fair amount of cloud moving in. But for the north and northwest of Scotland, the cloud actually thins and it turns brighter into the afternoon and warmer as a result. North East Scotland, low to mid-20s, low to mid-20s further south in places as well. And it's another fine start to Wednesday. The best of the sunshine on Wednesday morning will be in the far north and west, whilst central and eastern England sees quite a lot of cloud during the morning. That disappears back to the coast during the afternoon, leading to another warm and fine day for many. Thursday's very similar, but on Friday, some showers will return. Bye-bye.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together and what have we got, in my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mark Dolan tonight is your weekend dose of news, debate and entertainment. This sounds like a wild conspiracy theory. Don't miss My Big Opinion. Mark meets at My Take at 10.
Democracy is a funny old thing.
And we don't do boring, not on my watch. I just won't have it.
Let's go and get another glass of that bubbly. You've earned it.
That's Mark Dolan tonight, Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 11, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's 10 p.m. I'm Patrick Christys. Tonight, Keir Starmer gets shouted and sworn at the races.
We discussed the Albania arrangement, which isn't up and running yet, as you know, and therefore we don't yet know the outcome.
No wonder he's legged it to Italy, but he's no closer to smashing the gangs. And we have an exclusive for you that reveals how people smugglers are now running a ferry service for illegal immigrants. Also tonight,
not in receipt of pension credit or certain other means-tested benefits will no longer receive the winter fuel payment from this year onwards.
today is a day of shame. The winter fuel payments have now been scrapped. Millions of pensioners will be plunged into poverty through that and a variety of other different ways in which they're getting clobbered. Meanwhile, of course, if you do decide to come across the channel, you get all the benefits in the world. We are raising a little bit of money for the elderly members of our society. You can go to justgiving.com/page/save our seniors. We started that fundraiser an hour ago and it's now at £42,176. You are amazing people. I've got a lot planned in the coming weeks. You're going to be hearing me bang on about this all the time, I'm afraid. We're going to try and raise as much money as we possibly can to help show the elderly that we, at least we here, the GB News viewers, we do care about them. As anyway, on my panel tonight is the Telegraph's Madeline Grant. We've got journalist Benjamin Butterworth and the ex-chair of the Tory party, Sir Jake Berry. Owen, can you tell me, please, what happens next here? Ready, Britain, here we go. Human traffickers are laughing at Keir Starmer. Next.
Good evening, I'm Sophia Wenslow with your headlines at just after 10 o'clock. The FBI has given an update on the apparent assassination attempt on Donald Trump, saying they view this as extremely serious and are determined to provide answers. Meanwhile, the Secret Service says they're providing Mr. Trump with the highest level of protection, adding also that the suspected gunman did not fire any shots. Earlier, 58-year-old Ryan Routh appeared in a Florida court charged with federal gun crimes. Reports suggest a Secret Service agent saw the barrel of a rifle sticking out from the bushes on the perimeter of Trump's international golf course in West Palm Beach. According to phone records, Routh was in the wooded area near Trump's golf course for about 12 hours. Trump, who is unharmed, has posted on social media saying it was certainly an interesting day. Back in the UK, disgraced BBC presenter Hugh Edwards has been spared jail after admitting to accessing indecent images of children, but the judge said his long-earned reputation is in tatters. It comes after the 63-year-old was sent 41 illegal images by convicted paedophile Alex Williams over WhatsApp. The court also heard Edwards paid Williams hundreds of pounds after receiving the images. At Westminster Magistrates Court this afternoon, Edwards was handed 6 months imprisonment, suspended for 2 years. It means he doesn't go to prison, but is subject to a probation period. In other news, the Prime Minister has reaffirmed his commitment to cracking down on smuggling gangs after high-level talks in Rome. Sir Keir Starmer met with Italian leader Giorgia Meloni to discuss what he called Italy's remarkable progress in halting Mediterranean boat crossings. It comes after Italy's recent controversial deal with Albania to handle asylum claims. In a joint press conference, both leaders underscored their commitment to supporting Ukraine and pledged to work together to fight human trafficking.
The challenge of irregular migration. This is a problem across Europe for both of our countries in particular, but across Europe. As Director of Public Prosecutions in Britain some years ago, I saw the important work that can be done across borders on issues like counter-terrorism. And I've never accepted, as we discussed, that we can't do the same with smuggling gangs. And now, of course, Italy has shown that we can. You've made remarkable progress working with countries along migration routes as equals to address the drivers of migration at source and to tackle the gangs.
And junior doctors have voted to accept a government pay deal worth a rise of 22.3% on average over 2 years. The British Medical Association thanked junior doctors in England for voting, with 66% in favour of the deal. Those are the latest GB News headlines. Now it's back to Patrick.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Welcome along. Keir Starmer has obviously had enough of people swearing him at the races or dealing with sleaze scandals involving his wife's frocks. He's been to Italy to see how they've managed to reduce illegal immigration. But there is a problem for Starmer. Do you remember when he said this?
I'm worried about the far right. I'm worried about populism and nationalism and the politics of the easy answer, the snake oil, if you like.
Yeah, well, it turns out that the really right-wing Italian government has actually got it right. Here he is now, sucking up to Meloni.
Made remarkable progress working with countries along migration routes as equals to address the drivers of migration at source and to tackle.
Yeah, so you just know, don't you, that if the Italian leader was a Tory politician in Britain, Starmer would be saying what an inhumane, soulless criminal she was. In the run-up to the election, Sir Keir Starmer kept telling us,
I think that we can smash the vile gangs that are running this trade, that are making a fortune putting people into boats and breaching our border security. I'm not prepared to put up with that, and that's why I think the serious answer is to smash the gangs.
Well, it turns out he obviously didn't actually have a plan. And now, GB News can reveal that human traffickers are openly laughing at him. We can exclusively tell you that people smugglers are putting on an illegal migrant ferry service, picking them up from various different points along the French coast. So it's not just Calais and Dunkirk. They are genuinely going along the coast, picking people up like an Uber service, OK? And they are doing pickups in Ambleteuse, Wissant and Sangatte. And this allows them to squeeze around 80 people onto a boat. The smugglers communicate using encrypted messaging services, and they'll do several stops along the French coast before setting off out into the Channel and then waiting for Border Force to come and get them. 801 people crossed on Saturday. That's the second highest daily total this year. Germany's closing its borders and ramping up deportations. Italy is essentially turning boats back and has agreements with third countries. Both of those nations seem untroubled by the ECHR. Our Prime Minister doesn't even really want to call it illegal immigration anymore. It's irregular now, isn't it? There's no deterrent anymore. Starmer said he smashed the gangs. In response, the gangs have set up a ferry service. They clearly don't fear Keir. Let's get our thoughts from my panel this evening. We've got sketch writer and columnist at the Daily Telegraph. It's Madeline Grant. We've got journalist and broadcaster Benjamin Butterworth and the ex-chairman of the Tory party, Sir Jay Berry. Jay, I will start with you and work my way down. So there is now an illegal migrant ferry service on the coast of France. So that's good, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I wish you were making it up. I mean, you actually couldn't make it up. This crisis, which, in all fairness to Keir Starmer, he inherited. He hasn't created this, to give the man a bit of slack, is just getting worse and worse and worse. And I think part of that is driven by the fact that he came into government, huge mandate given to him on the 4th of July, saying that he had a plan to smash the gangs. Well, what's he done so far? He's redefined illegal migration to irregular migration, as you say. So what? But things that do matter is we had passed a law saying that if you come to this country illegally, you'll never be given asylum. That's been overturned. We had a well-advanced plan to send people to Rwanda before Benjamin comes in. I know that we hadn't sent any. Obviously, we'd sent a couple, but they'd volunteered to go. But, in fact, it was there. Now the German government, apparently, we read in the papers, is looking to adopt that plan and use the accommodation paid for by the British taxpayer as its biggest deterrent. And, all of the deterrents have gone. And now we see him going over to see Giorgia Meloni. When I first he was going over to see Giorgia Meloni, I thought he'd taken up his role as a prosecutor because she, under his definition, is far right.
Well, this is it.
Surely in Britain, she'd be sent to prison for the policies she has. He now wants to copy them.
So he went to Germany and he said, progressives of Europe unite. And about 2 days later, Germany basically shut the borders and started ramping up deportations.
And picked up the Rwanda policy.
Picked up the Rwanda policy. And now he's gone to Italy, who I am convinced that Keir Starmer, by his own definition, must think that Meloni's far right.
It's pretty wild, actually, how out of step with the rest of Europe we are, including governments that are actually socially democratic or centre-left are taking much more drastic action to deal with this crisis because they know how the public in their countries feel about it. And another thing that's come out of the meetings with Meloni is that Keir Starmer is said to be quite tempted by Italy's plan to process migrants in Albania. So it's not OK with Rwanda, but Albania seems a much better proposition. It's something that they're actively considering. I mean, it doesn't surprise me because fundamentally, until we can get to the bottom of the push and pull incentives, then nothing will change. Nothing will change, and we will continue. The taxpayer will continue to be mocked in this way by these, ferry trips going across the coast of France.
I mean, this is just a completely ludicrous situation, isn't it? And it's impossible for the French to now defend against this because you've just got migrant pickup points along the coast. They get them all in these boats and they ferry them out across into the Channel. I mean, Keir Starmer was saying he's going to smash the gang. The gangs don't care, do they, Benjamin?
Well, clearly not, because they've been doing it for years. The number, 801 in one day is a lot, but it's no different to the last year or the year before that. So I really don't buy this idea that they're flicking through the Labour manifesto, deciding when they're going to pop over to Britain. I think that's got nothing to do with it. And frankly, criticising him for working with Giorgia Meloni is absurd, because it's his job to work with other democratically elected leaders, or not democratically elected. That's his responsibility as the British Prime Minister. So it's nothing like if she were the Conservative leader or something like it. And they appointed a new head of a task force only today, I think.
Oh, great.
In order to smash these gangs.
Yeah.
But look, the idea of what people like Sir Jake's party had, that you can just shout at the French and say, I want you awful, and somehow they'll want to work with you, clearly that was pretty flawed.
But the thing about the border force is that it's basically identical to a very similar force that the Tories had before that was just called a different name. And Keir Starmer has just renamed this department and says, we've done something brand shiny and new. And you haven't. You've just replicated the ideas of the last government that weren't very
But it has got a new head,
either.
of course, who's in charge of locking everyone up during COVID. So let's see how he does manage.
He's effective.
Well, exactly. Well, it did work. So let's see how he does with.
Your government that did that.
But let's see how he does looking at people who are crossing the Channel. Look, I think what really sticks in my craw is this idea that they've abolished Rwanda, which is very well developed, and planes subject to going through the courts we're going to... Well, it may have been expensive. I don't think it's any cheaper to process people in Albania. We hear that the government's thinking about Morocco or Tunisia as places. The country doesn't matter. The principle of offshoring people as a deterrent is something that now the Labour Party has been forced to admit. They admitted it today. The Home Secretary said they were open to it. Is something that works. If it works, why did they cancel Rwanda when we'd already spent all of the money to set it up? And in fact, Rwanda was better because if you were successful in your asylum claim, you stayed in Rwanda. What Georgia Meloni in Italy do is if you succeed, you come back, in that case, to Italy. And it won't work while we have a civil service and a Home Office that waves through 90% plus of people who apply for asylum just come to Britain. So that's no deterrent. We should have stuck with Rwanda, Benjamin.
But, I mean, it's wrong to say that Labour's changed its position because it never opposed processing people in a third country. It was about deporting them there. That was the case before the election, and clearly they're still looking at it now. And also, you say the fact that we accept 90%. Well, then, by definition, they're not illegal migrants. They have had a legitimate, upheld claim to be here. And if you want to change that system, well, then you change the rules of what qualifies as a refugee.
There's no such thing as an asylum seeker from France. They are not fleeing persecution. France is a safe country. They are from France.
They're not. They're in France.
Well, exactly. So why don't they claim asylum in France?
They're not coming over with a baguette.
And you can't blame the French. And frankly, if you were a French politician and you had thousands of people in Calais, off you go. Britain this way, soft touch this way.
Massive sign for Dover.
It's our job as the British government to stop people coming to this country illegally, and I don't think Keir Starmer's cutting the mustard.
The true dishonesty is any politician that tells you that you can just fix this, because you can't. And I think in the decades to come, this will become a bigger problem, not a smaller problem, because the ability to cross the world is getting easier, the structures, the technology is making it easier, and also there is things like climate change that are making swathes of the world unlivable, and those people are going to go somewhere. And I think politicians should be more straightforward about that.
I would just say that Australia had a policy of pushing back the boats and processing everyone far away from the mainland, and it worked rather well. I mean, I'm not saying that we're obviously a lot closer to continental Europe than Australia is to the various islands that surround it, but I don't think it's fair to say that no country has ever solved this or got to the bottom of it. It just requires being harsher and firmer.
And Italy's done it. 62% drop in the number of migrants coming to Italy in the last 12 months. They've done that offshore.
Other countries.
But we are out of step, aren't we, in actually quite an astonishing way, considering we're the ones who voted for Brexit as a country. We voted for Brexit. Huge part of that, for a lot of people, was borders. And now you look at Germany potentially shutting the borders, ramping up deportations, what Italy are doing now. We wouldn't be able... Starmer's wanted to stop us doing any of that stuff in this country consistently, hasn't he? And now he's going over there going, goodness me, you know what you're doing there really works. It's mad.
Well, I think it owes most of all, actually, to the fact that other countries in Europe predominantly have some kind of proportional representation, which means that politicians that are not insulated in the same way that we are by first past the post from people's true feelings about stuff. So it means that often you have parties of the radical right that are there gaining ground in their parliaments, and it means that the parties of the centre right and the centre left have to listen. They can't just afford to ignore those desires, whereas the first past the post system insulates our politicians from the true feelings of the electorate.
Yeah, it does. I mean, that's the Loveless landslide, isn't it? That's what getting booed and called a banker at Doncaster races looks like when you've got a majority of goodness knows what. You know, there's that discrepancy there, isn't there? Really. Do you think that Starmer is? I mean, is he going to copy Meloni? Is he? Do you think what's the upshot of this actually going to be? We're going to work more with the Albanians. Is that what we think?
That's certainly the signals coming out of them today. But I think we might be a bit more inventive, because Albania, it's taken some time. There's been a challenge. There was historically a challenge in the Albanian parliament against this, because guess what? People who live in Albania don't want all these people sent there. So I think the most likely thing is that we will copy the policy, but do it somewhere like Morocco or Tunisia or another North African country.
Okay. I mean, Albania is very sparsely populated, so, you know, they've got plenty of space.
So is France. Why don't they stay there?
I mean, look, we already have to deal with the boats and Albanians coming here, being sent back to Albania. That was already a success. So clearly there's a precedent for the two governments working together. And Albanians tend to be rather fond of the Brits for our history 25 years ago, helping their people. So I wouldn't say it's impossible.
Yeah, I mean, I think from memory, the Albanian leader is worried that Albania is losing too many men. that they're leaving.
But they mainly go to Germany. There's a huge grain drain up to Germany from Albania and Kosovo and those countries.
Well, there you go. All right, well, that'll do us to the first section of this show. I've got a heck of a lot more to talk to you about because I'm going to be bringing you tomorrow's front pages at 10:30pm sharp. Next, though, we're going to be discussing how the winter fuel raid is impacting one GBNews viewer. It's just part of a basket of measures, really, that are about to make it a desperately depressing winter, really, for the elderly. We're going to have more old people living in poverty than ever before. And if you want to try to do your bit to just help out, you can go to justgiving.com/page/save our seniors. We're raising a bit of money for Friends of the Elderly, and you have got it up to £46,840, which, considering we started this at 9pm, is amazing. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Friends of the Elderly, what they do is they help old people in urgent need, so they can get them food, they can get them white goods, they can pay their utility bills for them. And a huge demographic of people that they are going to help this winter are people who just missed out on the winter fuel payment. So maybe they're like £1 or £2 over the pension credit thing. So they're going to be disproportionately affected. They've got a busy winter ahead, so thank you very much, everybody, for helping them out a little bit there. But yeah, we're going to talk to one GBNews viewer very, very shortly about some of the impacts that the winter fuel raid is having on her, so don't miss that.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6pm on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Martin Daubney, weekdays from 3pm.
What prompted you to go on your incredible journey?
Well, you know, I was fighting my own demons at the time, you know, before I started the walk, and it had been a long journey, if you like. And, you know, I knew that I needed to make a change, and my daughter had just flown the nest. I was a single parent before this, and previous to that, I was ex-parachute regiment. And I knew that I needed to make a change, because if I didn't, I'm not sure where I would have been now, if that makes sense. So, yeah, something just came into my head at the very end of July and said, look, go and walk the UK coastline. And that's exactly what I did. And 6 years later, we've just finished.
You met your missus on the journey as well, didn't you? So truly, Chris, a transformative journey for yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, look, you step into the unknown like that, you know, you have no idea how things are going to work out. You go out with so little expectation, but only really with the aim to, you know, for me personally, to come back feeling a lot better than what I was before I left. And that certainly succeeded. So everything that happened along that journey was one big learning curve. And I got to learn a lot about myself, a lot about, you know, the public and people. And yeah, it was just a life-changing transformation for me. And, you know, I learned so much, and I know what I want to do with the rest of my life as a result of it. And I met the most amazing people. And, you know, I worked hard. 6 years of carrying your house on your back isn't the easiest feat in the world, I can promise you that, but it was worth every single step, because, yep, I rescued a dog along the way. I met my now fiance, Kate Barron, along the way, and we had a baby together along the way as well. So to start in the position that I did and then end up with all of that coming over the line with me was just something that I never expected, and I couldn't have dreamed it up, to be honest.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
It's true. You're not wrong. No one
will be cancelled. Lovely. Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
OK, so here on Patrick Christys tonight, we are not letting the scandal of the winter fuel cut go. Whilst this country has got loads of pensioners who will be choosing, sadly, between heating and eating. At the same time, that highly paid train drivers are going to be enjoying their pay rise thanks to Rachel Reeves, or should that be Rachel Freeze, given what we're seeing happening with pensioners. The decision is allegedly to try and plug a £22 billion black hole in the public finances. But isn't it funny that the people shouldering the burden of these savings are the people who are least likely to vote Labour? Every single other party represented in the House of Commons are opposing this measure on the winter fuel payments. Our political editor, Christopher Hope, sat down with Lib Dem leader Sir Ed Davey at their party conference earlier today. And he said something. OK, that video will be with us in a bit, apparently. Right, OK, so look, I'm joined here by my panel this evening. Look, when it comes to these winter fuel payments and stuff now, I get that there is a case for that they should be means tested and all of that, but it's part of other wider measures, isn't it? That has, I think, given the impression that Keir Starmer has essentially gone to war with old people.
Yeah, and I think if you're concerned about this, you should be really, really concerned about the budget that's coming down the line. There's been silence about the older person's bus pass, which, of course, people say they get free travel. Yeah, it's free for them, but actually the bus company gets paid for every single person who uses their bus pass. So they are the lifeblood, particularly during the daytime, of rural bus services and bus services in smaller towns. So if you lose the free bus pass, we'll see our bus services decimated across this country. There's, of course, silence about whether pensioners will retain their free prescriptions. They're, of course, much more likely to become ill and be reliant on prescriptions. That would be very concerning. But the thing that terrifies people is this idea that they may abolish the 25% discount on your council tax that you get for being a single person. That would be Labour's granny tax, and I do not think they would recover from behaving that way towards the most vulnerable in our society and pensioners. I just think that is something people are really, really concerned about.
It's the widow tax, isn't it? And again, look, I just want to say, I thought we'd try and do something about this. I wanted to try and just do a bit of a fundraiser. That is live now. It's justgiving.com/page/save our seniors. Last time I checked that page, we'd raised more than £46,000, which is fantastic. So thank you. That money will go towards grants for old people who've fallen on hard times. 51,313 quid. I mean, that's an amazing achievement. Thank you so, so much. You are going to save lives this winter, where people are having to choose between heating and eating or unable to get to doctor's appointments, etc. That is what Friends of the Elderly do. They go and help them out in that situation. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Benjamin, look, you know, you can see things like that, can't you, with that fundraiser there, where clearly that sparks something in the public. Keir Starmer doesn't get that, does he?
Yeah, he absolutely does, because, you know, the fact is that there are pensioners, a couple of million of the 12.5 million pensioners who are in real poverty, who have probably lived in a degree of poverty for most of their lives. And, of course, when you get to pensionable age, that becomes more acute because you can't take any money in. And those people should be helped. I find it strange that, you know, that almost 30% of pensioners who are millionaires have not been saying, well, I want to give my £300 to the ones who are really suffering. Now, I think Rachel Reeves probably should have set up a fund for those people to taper the edge for the pension credit, because I think, you know, there's no getting around that. And this is what this fundraiser will do to help some of those people, hopefully.
But I think that,
you can't pretend that we're in a situation where we can give £1.5 billion to people that don't need it. And I find it extraordinary.
£3.1 billion the Labour government borrowed in the blink of an eye to pay their union mates. So they can't sit there and simultaneously...
Well, if you're talking about giving junior doctors an appropriate level
or train drivers.
Or train drivers. I think people should be paid
That's brilliant,
properly.
isn't it? No, that's great. So the person who does that on the train now, 70 grand a year, 77 grand a year. Oh, are we stopping again, are we? Yeah, we are. 77 grand a year. Massive pension, great stuff. Meanwhile, Ethel's freezing to death in her living room. Shocking.
The money isn't going from one to the other. I think that's a ridiculous distortion of the situation. And the fact is, you know, behind closed doors, Conservatives are really impressed by what Keir Starmer's doing.
Come on.
Because what
How many Conservative houses are you rocking up to? What are you doing?
They all say he's dressed. They say he's a snappy dresser. I'll give him that. He's a snappy dresser.
The hypocrisy of giving out hundreds and hundreds of millions of pounds to millionaires from the state.
Oh, come on.
You either believe in what Liz Truss says the state should be smaller, or you don't.
OK, all right. Look, I think it's for me, there's a psychological thing here. That generation of elderly people are probably the least likely to want to put their hand out. Whereas we have a younger generation who are more than happy to do that. Everyone's signed off on something or doing whatever, they know exactly where the benefits are. Whereas you've got older people there who I think are the least likely to want to try, because they might not think, oh, there's someone always worse off than me. Well, not necessarily, actually. And they should...
Why do you hate young people so much? I don't know why it has to be at the expense of some... You can just say that it's wrong to deprive all but the absolutely the most poor pensioners of their winter fuel payments without having it be kind of at the expense of snowflake youngsters or whatever. I mean, young people have had a lot of what were historically their benefits cut too. I mean, you may remember during the coalition years, it was the educational maintenance and allowance was one of the things that got cut. Overwhelmingly, it was spending on younger people that went, and it was spending on pensioners that was protected. I mean, I'm not saying if that's right or wrong, but just, you know, that is how the trend generally has gone, because old people tend to vote in greater numbers than young people, so it makes more sense to call them.
I think they should unionise. I feel like they should unionise. The only problem is they can't go on strike, can they? Because they're retired a lot.
Young people, I think, have also had a torrid time, and I think it is about to get even worse for young people, because when the kind of my parents' generation, the boomer generation, when that generation has stopped working and are completely retired, there was obviously a big demographic bulge at that point, because so many people were born after the Second World War. When that generation retires, we'll have a very small pool of working-age people to pay for it. So I think young people are going to have an even worse time.
And that's why we need more refugees, because you need people going to work to pay the pensions.
Do you know how much it costs per refugee? We're not sure about
I read the story, but I don't accept it.
150 grand per refugee, and £500,000 per refugee if they live until 80. But the real issue is, it's not a zero-sum game. Maybe we shouldn't be taking money. Well, if it is a zero-sum game, let's not take money away from young people. We give tens of millions of pounds to India.
Yes.
They have a space programme. They have sent a rocket to the moon.
You're about to enrage Indian Twitter.
Something Britain has never been able to afford to do for ourselves. We give money to India, and they use their own money to send a rocket to the moon. We give money to China. We give money around the world while pensioners are freezing to death.
It's true.
Cut the foreign aid budget.
Bring
give
that
it to
money home.
pensioners.
Bring that money home. And if you want to save a pensioner's life, you can go to justgiving.com/page/save our seniors. I've got loads of stuff planned for the fundraiser in the coming weeks, so I'm afraid you're going to be hearing quite a lot about it from me. 55.5 grand is what we're up to now. Thank you very much, everybody. I'll go into a lot more detail probably in tomorrow's show about exactly where this money is going to be spent, what it's going to be done with, etc, etc. Coming up, Tuesday's papers are on the way, and an RAF man went AWOL, and you won't believe where he's ended up. But next, yes, it is all the front pages for you, so stay tuned for that.
Hi there, welcome to the latest forecast from the Met Office for GB News. It was missing throughout much of the summer, but higher pressure has now arrived. There will be some cloud in places, but for most it's clear spells through the night and during the next few days. Under this higher pressure that's centred over the UK, that's pushed a cold front south. But another weak front will move into the far northwest overnight. That's going to bring some thicker and lower clouds, so fairly murky and damp in places. Lewis Harris sky, as well as Shetland, seeing some light and patchy outbreaks of rain. Elsewhere, clear skies. Under those clear skies, temperatures falling 2 to 4 Celsius in some sheltered spots across central and southern UK. A few mist and fog patches first thing. They're not going to last soon enough. Clear skies and sunshine return across the UK. That is, except for the Northern Isles and the far north and northwest of Scotland, where it will be a grey, misty and damp start in places. Best of the sunshine across Scotland, we'd be through the central belt at eastern Scotland, and Northern Ireland seeing some decent sunny spells. But for much of southern Scotland, England and Wales, it's blue skies from the word go, and that's how it remains effectively throughout much of the day. Some patchy cloud, most likely across East Anglia and the southeast. Kent seeing a fair amount of cloud moving in. But for the north and northwest of Scotland, the cloud actually thins and it turns brighter into the afternoon and warmer as a result. Northeast Scotland, low to mid-20s. Low to mid-20s further south in places as well. And it's another fine start to Wednesday. The best of the sunshine on Wednesday morning will be in the far north and west, whilst central and eastern England sees quite a lot of cloud during the morning. That disappears back to the coast during the afternoon, leading to another warm and fine day for many. Thursday's very similar, but on Friday, some showers will return. Bye-bye.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Stephen Dixon, and thanks for joining us on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
I'm Emily Carver. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Patrick Christys tonight, and it's time to bring you the very first look at tomorrow's newspaper front pages, so let's do it. The Metro, Lucky Hugh, BBC News anchor avoids jail over child sex videos. Edwards called images amazing, the court said. Grief. There is anger at the soft sentence. He paid a lot of money for some of these pictures. 41 of them were believed to be illegal. The Eye, they've also gone for Hugh Edwards avoids jail over images of child abuse. And they say the Chief Magistrate, Paul Goldspring, told Edwards that his long-earned reputation was in tatters, apparently. The next paper that we're going to be looking at is the Daily Telegraph. They've gone for Starmer defiant over peers' freebies. There's a picture there of Lady Starmer, and she's just wearing a really nice outfit. That looks expensive, doesn't it? You know?
I'm so glad you got that right, though, because the papers keep calling her Lady Victoria, and it's not. It's Lady Starmer.
All right, OK, well, that was sheer luck. OK, so the Daily Express, reputation in tatters over child abuse images, damning verdict on shamed former BBC presenter Hugh Edwards. He's avoided jail. And just to round us off, the Mail, they've all really kind of gone off on the Hugh Edwards story. Disgraced, reviled, but not a day in jail as Hugh Edwards walks free despite horrifying new evidence of his crimes. Madeline, should he have gone to prison?
I think so. I mean, I think that it's crazy that the judges appear to treat this particular crime, they seem to be going soft on anything where there has been paedophilia but not, actively involving. So it's watching material rather than actively engaging in paedophilia. However, the material that you're watching and paying for involves a real child, real children in this case, who have been trafficked and abused in the most grotesque way. So I think I don't really understand why the courts seem to take a dim view as they do of this particular form of paedophilia.
Yeah. Benjamin, what's your thoughts on this? I mean, the individual that he actually purchased the pictures off didn't go to prison either. He got suspended. So I think most people really knew that he wasn't going to go to prison, Hugh Edwards, but people probably think he should have done.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't a surprise for the reason you just gave. I think, most people acknowledge that this is the ugliest crime imaginable, and it seems uncomfortable, it seems wrong that such a horrific crime doesn't get a prison sentence. On the other side, I think, one of the odd things about the nature of the crime is that putting someone behind bars can stop them doing it for a period of time, but does it stop those perverse impulses? Well, it doesn't. And so is it the way to prevent future victims? Is the psychological help? Or I've long thought that castration is appropriate for paedophiles because it takes away the urge. There's a Louis Theroux documentary where you look at how they do that in the US. Yeah. I think that is a more appropriate way to deal with these people because it is a heinous urge that they should be removed of to save the potential future victims or the ones they've had. But what I'd say about the prison sentence is that it matters that this is Hugh Edwards. It matters that he was on a pedestal, that his whole life benefited from privilege and from power that position as Britain's most popular newsreader brought him. And that allowed him to exercise some of this abuse, to be able to persuade this man potentially to engage with him, to pay him up to £1,500, the court.
It's weird, isn't it? Because apparently this particular individual reached out to quite a few people in media, and Hugh Edwards was the only one who replied to him. Yeah. Do you think the BBC has got a lot of questions to answer for? I mean, they continued to pay him, didn't they, whilst he was off?
Well, I think they have asked him for some of the £200,000 he was paid after they knew about these allegations. They've asked him for it back. I would suggest that they should be doing a bit more than asking him for it back. Look, this whole thing has just been another appalling scandal hitting the BBC. And if we talk about that 200,000, it's not their money, it's our money.
Yeah.
It's the money we paid in a licence fee. You know, they just do not seem to be able to get this right. They seem to be myopic completely when it comes to their own talent about bad behaviour. And I think Hugh Edwards should have faced a custodial sentence. But the other people I would like to see in the dock is the BBC for repeatedly allowing these sorts of individuals like Jimmy Savile to hide in plain sight in our national broadcasting.
Let's not forget that there have been imprisonments from people not paying their licence fee.
Yeah.
You know, failure to pay your licence fee could see you in jail, but, you know, engaging in viewing videos of featuring paedophilia is treated very differently. It's almost treated like the kind of sentencing that the kind of mitigations that would apply to someone who had any kind of mental illness, you know.
Well, yeah, and apparently some of the magistrate's comments certainly raised eyebrows. It's all very well and good to say his reputation's in tatters and all of that, but you know, just sort of apparently as part of mitigation, at one point his lawyer tried to make the case that because he went to Cardiff University and not Oxbridge, he always felt like an outsider at the BBC. Which
I'm sure he did, but...
Yeah, but the solution to that is not to go and engage in...
pedos.
No, exactly. You know, it's not... I couldn't quite work out what that was supposed to mean. So he felt like an outsider, so he went and looked at naughty pictures of kids. It's weird, isn't it? But anyway, so there we go. Anyway, right, now this is a bit of a screeching gear change, but we were hoping to speak to one GB News viewer called Sue in Cheshire. We have now been able to get hold of Sue in Cheshire. Sue, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to meet you. It's a pleasure to have you on the show. And I was in Cheshire today, actually, and drove back. I was there seeing my grandma over the weekend. So you never know, we might have crossed paths, Sue. But I did want you to come on and have a little bit of a chat with me about what's going on for you this winter, because we've seen things like the winter fuel payments being scrapped, haven't we? And there's a few other bits and bobs heading down the track. So I was just hoping to see how you were getting on, really, Sue. What's going to happen with you?
Well, I'm going to lose out because I'm just... I've got a state pension, and if Benjamin would like to know that not every pensioner has £11,502 as an annual pension. I'm on basic pension simply because I was born before 1953, so I'm on £8,800 a month, a year, sorry. So I've got a pension from my bank, and after 30 years there, I actually get paid less every month than the state pays me on basic pension. Gosh. So I just about scrape up to £15,000 a year, so obviously I'm not going to qualify for pension credit.
Right, which is amazing, really. And when it comes to, you know, November or December and the temperatures do start to drop, have you had a thought about what you're going to do in that situation? Are you going to be able to put the heating on, do you think? I
haven't got any heating. My boiler's broke, so I've got to try and find the money for a new boiler. Otherwise, what I did last year, really, is I sit and watch the telly in bed. Basically, I go to bed at 6 o'clock. I have my tea, go to bed at 6 o'clock and stay there until perhaps 9 or 10 in the morning, the next morning, when I can get dressed and put warm clothes on. That's how I dealt with last year.
I mean, it's remarkable to hear that, and I'm very sorry that you're in that situation. I do hope that we can help to raise a bit of money. And we have got a Just Giving going on at the moment. It's justgiving.com/page/save our seniors. That I think last time I checked it was on for something like £55,000, which we've raised in the last hour and a half, which is no mean feat, really. So thank you, everyone who's donated. But Sue, you know, does it feel to you like this is all a bit unfair? You know, you've presumably worked hard all your life. You've paid in. You've done your bit, and you know, here you are now getting into bed at 6 p.m. because you can't put the heating on because you can't fix your boiler.
Yeah, I paid the national insurance stamp for 40 years, and I only get £169.50 a week now, whereas others get £200 odd a week if they're on. You know, if they were born after 53 or 51 after 51 if you're a bloke. So you know, I think it's totally unfair. Benjamin always thinks that us pensioners are all wealthy. We don't need to earn any money. You know, we should go out and work again if we are short of money. But that's not possible when you've got a gammy knee and you can't walk along. I've even looked at, you know, doing bar work and stuff, but I couldn't stand that long in an evening, you know. Just
quickly, Sue, if that's all right, do you mind letting me know roughly what your weekly food budget is?
£15
a week.
Mostly, yeah.
Good grief. Okay. All right. I mean, that's impossible, surely. What do you eat?
Well, I eat steamed vegetables. In the morning, I have a yoghurt and a couple of tangerines and a cup of coffee. Then at lunchtime, I have 2 rounds of brown bread with something on it. And then at night, I have a bit of chicken and some steam frozen vegetables.
Look, I am really glad that you've come on and told us your story, because it is a very brave thing to do, and you have hammered home to a lot of people, I think, if there was any doubt whatsoever about what the reality is like in modern Britain for people who I think are our greatest generation. So I want to say a massive thank you, Sue. That Just Giving is justgiving.com/page/save our seniors. And Sue, look, I really would hope to maybe point you in the direction of Friends of the Elderly, which is the group of people that we are.
Well, I wouldn't take anything like that, you know. I think I'm still young enough at 70, well, I'll be 73 next month. I'm still young enough and strong enough to sort of weather the storm sort of thing, you know.
This is the mindset, Sue, that I absolutely love, but I wish sometimes, you know, there's other people who don't mind claiming things, you know, every now and again. And obviously people of your generation are possibly the most reluctant to do that. Sue, thank you very much. And I would like to stay in touch with you as well and keep having chats with you like this. So you take care, Sue. Thank you very much. That's Sue in Cheshire.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you as well. All the best. OK. Right. OK. So, sorry, I've run roughshod over all the timings of the show this evening, but you know what? Who cares? Coming up, my panel will be putting forward their greatest Britain Union jackasses, but I just want to give you an update on the fundraiser. It's up to £61,000. GB News viewers and listeners, I am convinced, are amongst the most generous people on earth. That is a remarkable sum of money in such a short period of time. Tomorrow, I'll be telling you all the different ways that money's going to help. I'm going to be doing a couple of bits and bobs as well, a few stunts along the way to try and probably putting myself in massive physical discomfort at some point for your own entertainment, and hopefully we can raise some more money. So it's all for Friends of the Elderly, who give grants to people who are in need. Anyway, right, OK. So this is Patrick Christys tonight. We are only on GB News. And an Instagram influencer goes where few others would bear.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
A furious online debate has been sparked after, well, let's just say a rather large man, I mean, he really was big, was snapped trying to fit into his seat on a plane.
It's led to some to ask whether obese passengers should have to pay for extra plane seats so they don't inconvenience others.
Some say, though, that's cruel. So should plus-size passengers pay extra for plane seats? Let's talk to former presenter of Fat Families, Steve Miller, who's in Stratford-upon-Avon, and the director of All About Obesity, Sarah LeBrock, who's in beautiful Harrogate. Good to see you both this morning. Sarah, what do you think?
Well, we've had this debate before with Steve and I, to be fair, and I think it's one of those things where planes are just not fit for purpose anymore. So people's bodies have been growing over the years. We know this, the obesity rates are increasing, etc. But what's happening to planes is the seats are decreasing in size. So they're just not fit for purpose and not fit for the population. So I think it's just one of these things where we need to be more empathetic to people, that they're trying to fit into an environment that isn't shaped for them at all. So I think we do need to kind of say, well, what's right here? Is it the person not being able to fit in the seat, or is it the seat not being fit for purpose for the person? And I think we need to really, look at things from that perspective as well. Instead of thinking the person's doing something wrong, how about the environment might be doing something wrong?
Steve?
It's not about blaming, but the message you can't put out, in my opinion, is that it's okay to be obese and don't worry about it. You see, what I'm saying here is free plane seats. If you're offering free plane seats, an extra seat, that's going to normalise obesity.
GB News, the People's Channel.
OK, welcome back to Patrick Christys tonight. And I've got some more front pages for you, so let's go. The Guardian, suspect charged after apparent assassination attempt on Trump. They've also got the big picture there of Hugh Edwards, his mugshot, and apparently Khan to ban traffic from struggling Oxford Street. So apparently Sadiq Khan is thinking of pedestrianising Oxford Street in London. So that's quite an interesting development, I suppose. Let's go to the Times. Your reputation is in tatters, Hugh Edwards told us he's spared jail. Working at home boosts productivity, says Labour. So there we go. The Business Secretary takes an aim at presenteeism. We couldn't possibly be present, could we? Oh, how dare we be present? Tell you what, though, Keir Starmer's wife was very much present at the shops, wasn't she? Because she's looking, she's dripping from head to toe in designer clobber, and that was paid for by a Labour donor. And then she attended Fashion Week. You just couldn't make it up, could you? But let's go to the Sun now. They've gone straight down the line with this one. Hugh outrage. Massive picture of his mugshot, the words sickening underneath it. He's not sent to jail. He asked for more videos, apparently. Obviously, we all know the horrific details of the Hugh Edwards case. Right, OK, let me zone in a bit on some of these stories that are here now. I mean, we've got working at home boost productivity, says Labour. Do we believe that?
Well, I think that maybe there are some businesses where it works for those businesses and employees, and others where it doesn't work so well. In some industries more feasible than others. But I find it a bit alarming that Labour is making a big blanket judgment about across the economy it raises productivity. I don't think there's any evidence for this. Certainly not that you could make some kind of sweeping statement about the virtues of
isn't there a point we should have presenteeism? We should, isn't that not a good thing to have in life? Turning up. Being there where you're supposed to, maybe, dare I say, looking smart or presentable. That's maybe a good thing in life.
I think a lot of young workers, you learn a lot from being in the office. It's where you meet your seniors, the experienced people. You make connections that are very helpful if you go to a promotion. It's really difficult to get that if you're not physically in the office. But on the flip side, there are going to be lots of people, maybe they've got young kids, maybe they've got caring for an elderly relative, where being at home and having that choice is going to make their work life a lot easier.
But isn't that a choice of to work or not to work? So I've got 3 young kids.
Well, no, most people.
But isn't the point that you can't be looking after your kids and working at the same time? That's why I don't buy that it increases productivity. And look, what private businesses do, that's up to them. But when my taxpayers' cash, all of our taxpayers' cash is being used to pay people, I think there's a legitimate expectation that people go into the office.
So can I just point out, it was your government that closed down lots of civil servant offices and forced people to work from home because
during the COVID pandemic. That was 4 years ago. Britain needs to get back to work. We're one of the least productive countries in Europe. Britain, get back to work.
Under the coalition, they closed down loads of government offices, and that was one of the reasons why they ended up needing people to work from home.
The big problem for me with Labour's plans is that they are not essentially saying to businesses, you decide between you and your employees, you come to the right arrangement. They're saying there has to be a blanket offering of the ability to work from home to all employees and to all businesses. So that whole, we're making broad generalisations about the entire economy.
No, it's got the whiff of the first steps towards a 4-day working week about it, I think. Anyway, right, OK, we're going to have to be rapid with this now, I'm afraid. It's time for the Greatest Britain's Union Jackass. Maddie, can you just start with the Greatest Britain, please? OK, you're probably not going to agree with me on this one, but I have nominated Sir Ed Davey, the leader of the Liberal Democrats, for the simple reason that I think he made a really important intervention today. He basically spoke out because it's been reported that Keir Starmer is hoping to expedite assisted dying through Parliament. I think whatever your views of the virtues of that particular argument, it's definitely not something that you want to rush through Parliament. It needs to be properly debated and properly discussed. Ed Davey spoke out about it. And he's also bringing in the fact that he's a full-time carer for a disabled son. So I think he brought his personal experience to bear. And actually, I think probably the policy would be more popular with his party than not. So I'm not even sure it's necessarily in Dems' interest. So fair play to him, I think, for seeing... Good stuff, good stuff. OK, go on.
My Greatest Britain is the journalist Scarlett Howes and the team at The Sun. The way that they had the backbone and the determination and the resource to expose Hugh Edwards when the BBC and so many other people in positions of power had knowingly looked the other way for so many years. So to those journalists and to the mum of the original teen in the story, I think they are exceptional. And to break down the barriers of those powerful men in the media who abuse junior people and get away with it, I think we should really admire The Sun.
All right, good stuff.
OK, so Rosie Duffield is a well-known Labour backbencher who has taken on her own party over the winter fuel payment. In fact, she said that their plans around the winter fuel payment could lead to people dying. She'd been contacted by a constituent who had cancer. Her doctor had told her to keep warm and she couldn't afford to heat her home. She is on the side of right, and it's a very brave thing to do to take on your own political party.
Yes. OK. All right. Well, there we go. I don't think we're going to have time for Union Jackass, I'm afraid. But today's Greatest Britain is Rosie Duffield MP for standing up about the winter fuel payments. So well done, well done. Now, it's just time for a very quick update on the old fundraiser. So justgiving.com/page/save our seniors. It's up to £64,700. It's an amazing effort. That money is going to Friends of the Elderly, who do grants, amongst other things, by the way, for people who are struggling a bit, especially in the run-up to winter. They are expecting that this is going to be one of the worst winters that they've had, more people in poverty than ever before. I think, it's times... I just wanted to try to do something to try to take the burden off people this winter. But anyway, thank you very much, everybody. Thank you for watching and listening at home. I will see you, wonderful people, tomorrow at 9 p.m.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hi there, welcome to the latest forecast from the Met Office for GB News. It was missing throughout much of the summer, but higher pressure has now arrived. There will be some cloud in places, but for most it's clear spells through the night and during the next few days. Under this higher pressure that's centred over the UK, that's pushed a cold front south. But another weak front will move into the far northwest overnight. That's going to bring some thicker and lower clouds, so fairly murky and damp in places. Lewis Harris sky, as well as Shetland, seeing some light and patchy outbreaks of rain. Elsewhere, clear skies. Under those clear skies, temperatures falling 2 to 4 Celsius in some sheltered spots across central and southern UK. A few mist and fog patches first thing. They're not going to last soon enough. Clear skies and sunshine return across